Hello and welcome to the season finale, the season 10 finale of Literary Gladiators. The show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work,
it's game.
It's game. Let's meet the panel.
Andrew.
Hi, I'm Jesi.
I'm Ari.
And I'm Josh. And Ari, thank you for filling in for Tori, who's still in Fraggle Rock.
Down in Fraggle Rock.
But
so she was actually exiled to Fraggle Rock?
Not necessarily. No, she went on a vacation.
I always think of like the Muppets dancing to Fraggle Rock. Do you remember that?
The
scene?
intro to Fraggle Rock is probably one of the best intros in television history.
It's very involved.
It's like it goes inside this mouse hole and it's just dun 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 dun.
But we are going to be going over to close out the season, The Evening Party by Virginia Woolf.
Bit of an odd story.
I've noticed that a lot of our viewers like our discussions about Virginia Woolf. The Mark on the Wall from Season 2 is one of our most viewed videos. It's in the four-figure club as of now. There's Kew Gardens is our most viewed video from Season 7 as we film this. Orlando got a nice amount of views.
And this is the first time I'm on a Virginia Woolf episode.
Yep, and we appreciate you filling in.
I figured I'd try it out.
And the discussion starter that I have for this is...
Somewhere.
That's a blank piece of paper.
Oh, yes, exactly how I feel.
Do you find this story to be disorganized? If so, do you feel the disorganization was intentional?
Not disorganized, no. Just the words used didn't make sense. Like, I'm not saying anything was, like, out of place. It was clear it was at a party. It was clear that it's kind of like the atmosphere at a party where you're talking to different people, the hostess, excuse me. I just lost what I was saying. Introduces people to, that's what you're supposed to do at a party. What happens? And you know what? Parties aren't necessarily that organized. Yeah. I mean, if you try to organize a party, you'll get what SpongeBob's house party. You get the talking, the bunny costume and whatever.
SpongeBob was surprisingly he was very highly annoying in that episode. It's
like at 8:13 p.m. we killed Trevor because he said Abernathy too many times. It was a very specific schedule. But this was it supposed to be loose? It's hard to write a loose story. That's all I have to say.
But I think that's what Virginia Woolf is trying to get at. Virginia Woolf, her writing is very... I think she's trying to make a point as far as with Kew Gardens, it was treating every element as a character. I think here, she's trying to make it so that it is not an evening party where anything happens. It's just an evening party. Any given evening party, they talk about something that interests them, and in this case it's literature. The setting and the outer atmosphere plays a role as well as it does in many of her works.
I don't usually say this, but I think this would have worked better if it was longer. That's just a personal opinion of mine.
Yeah, no, I think she got her point across as far. I think it was a bit... I personally thought Kew Gardens benefited from, as you said, the length, and I think it was much more, I thought I got more out of that, but I still think that this took another lens. And
I think the reason, and again, this is because this is reminder to all viewers, this is the first time I've read Virginia Woolf, I think the reason why I thought that it needed to be longer was because it felt very squished together. Not disorganized. Actually, it felt very organized, but it was just squished together. Like, oh, hi, look at this person. Okay, talking about grammar. Oh, great, Mr. Neville's here. Here, introduce you to Mr. Neville. Hi, Mr. Neville. Okay, let's go home. Like, it was all too quick. Like, if you spread that out, give more character development. I know maybe it was supposed to be a short story. I'm just not sure what
it was intended to be a short story for sure.
It just seemed rushed and squished. That's really what I'm a little bit frustrated about with this story.
Okay.
Well, the thing with I don't find it necessarily disorganized is I find it like varied. When I first read it, I didn't get it whatsoever, and neither did I the second time. When I read it like the third time, I tried to like abandon like reading it in a prosaic sense and just kind of like going with the flow until I hit a footnote and I saw that like one of the early revisions for it was titled "The Conversation Party." So I thought, yeah, okay, I'll take it in that respect that it's a conversation. So what I did is, I don't always do this, I recorded myself reading it. So I took myself out of reading it, because reading it, I'd like read a line, and she says something like, it's like, oh yeah, you got bit by a dog. And you're thinking, okay, the next line will explain about, but it doesn't. It's always like fragmented pieces, but when you hear it in a conversation sense, it made more sense, and I kind of got it. And
that was the problem I had with
wrote,
it. Too much dialogue.
I wrote down like a brief summary of what I experienced when I read it. And the story opens with an imagined, enhanced vision of a particular city and its surroundings. It's pretty poetic, maybe Baroque, a little, and it involves a narrator and her companion. The narrator, she speaks visually, and the other, her companion, speaks in a literal sense. They have a conversation with a professor about Shelley. They go off about like comma usages and all different types of punctuation. And when he leaves, they discuss limitations of speech, like can it adequately express a movement or what have you. Then the party hostess interrupts and introduces them to a Mr. Neal, who admires the narrator's work. They discuss the value of dead authors, and then that is interrupted by a Helen, who introduces the narrator to someone who knew her as a child. And then the narrator rejoins her companion, and they agree to leave hand in hand.
That's generally how jumbled a party. I think that's
So that's
often
like
how you really
a brief
can't
experience.
Do you
concentrate on one given thing at a party.
Yeah.
There are so many people involved and so many things.
Do
taking
you
place.
think this would work better if it was a skit?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
I think it would make.
I think it does too.
I think, much to Tori's dismay, I think it would make a very interesting Beckett play.
I think it's not. I think if this if this is going to be written, it needs to be spaced out, it needs to be cleaner. But if you're going to do it like this, it would be better to show it rather than tell it.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of what you're trying to get at, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Cause I guess maybe because I'm just like really conditioned to read like.
Because reading that word,
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. I literally just wanted to
But
pry
this was
my
kind of
eyeballs
like,
out.
yeah, it was really difficult, but it's, it was, I would call this like a prose poem. Like, it's like kind of a situational, story, but it's really, fanciful, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
It's really kind of creative and,
I think it's
Yeah.
Woolf in her element.
Yeah, I
yeah.
was gonna say it just kind of screamed Virginia Woolf.
I could
to me
literally
in
imagine
comparison
this
to,
like
Orlando and other things that
yeah.
it was very obviously.
I don't know
Virginia
how
Woolf.
the other Virginia Woolf stories kind of were they similar to this or
Yes.
Kew Gardens was similar.
Yeah.
And chronologically, I think it was right after this, right?
Yeah.
Like, I
According
can-
to this complete works of hers, I thought it was in Monday or Tuesday, but
Right
it wasn't.
before.
no?
Yeah, it's.
But I could literally imagine, Josh, this being just like you can turn this into a musical, like do. Excuse me, and pardon me for interrupting you, but I would like to introduce you to Mr. Neville. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, here is a comma. It's used at the end of a sentence. Like, I can literally imagine something like that being because you're showing it, because you're like showing it to people instead of reading it directly off the page.
That's awesome.
Tori Reynolds, eat your heart out.
Wow.
That's so cool.
I'm sure she's appreciating
I
it down
cannot
her,
believe
on her
her.
little
Fraggle
radio,
Rock.
her Fraggle Rock radio.
What are you doing, Charlie?
And he's dancing back there.
Alrighty then, do we have any final thoughts?
It was a good experience.
You're so nice.
I like how
I'm
you
not gonna give
Andrew,
it any stars, but
We usually
Not that
don't
I would
rate
give it
short
no stars,
stories,
but-
poems, or documents.
I like the way you
I'm just not gonna
you
grade
kind
it.
of thought outside the box, Andrew, and said, well, maybe if I can't read it this way, there must be another way to read
Yeah,
it.
Virginia Woolf
I thought
always
it's
warrants
so-
the reading of being outside the box.
Yeah, I
I think
thought
that
I
it
would-
succeeds, except for for me, it has succeeded every time, except for with Orlando.
With this, I can imagine, visually, like I said, a musical or play or skit, I can visually imagine this happening as a scene in a movie or something, but reading it is just, it's painful.
I feel like she's just a difficult author to read overall.
Yeah.
I mean, that could just be me. I know
I think
some
this-
people like Virginia Woolf. I just she's.
I think
there's
the
difficult.
situation is fine. I'm okay with what's going on. It's just too convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
It's too squished together, and it's too hard to read it.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty then, if you're interested in reading this and her other short
We
works,
didn't really do
this
good
is
on
the
that.
complete shorter fiction of Virginia Woolf. And I want to thank everybody for joining us for our 10th season. I want to thank...
Even me?
Yeah.
Yay!
I want to thank Andrew, Jesi, Ari. I want to thank Charlie, Trevor, Larry, Sarah, Dan, Nick, Tori, of course, Kayla, Brian,
And the Fraggles.
Professor Hartman. I want to thank Professor Frank Argoti Frere, who has really been a great addition. I also want to thank Carl and Sarah, who are new to the Gladiator family. I want to thank Casey.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is Casey gonna...
I think that's...
I think that's everybody.
Casey,
Yeah.
Casey, I don't know if you're watching this, but you have the best voice ever. Like, I'm sorry, you have the best voice ever.
Why would you apologize if you're complimenting?
I'm
He's
sure
like James Earl Jones. That's what he sounds like. He's awesome.
Not as deep, but still as smooth.
Yes, I'm Casey Bell. I love him. I love you.
Alrighty then. Thank you everybody for a great 10th season. We will be back for an 11th season in a few weeks. God hands. And for now, and as always, we encourage you to keep reading!
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time.
Now the musical
Thank you
director
very
here.
much.